input from Islamic scholars, because many of the aspects of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights lends itself to Islamic teaching. And certainly without the support of Muslims, this document could not have been called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Sure. So number 5 is that the number 5 closed view of Islam is that Islam is manipulative, that it is a closed political ideology that is used for political or military advantage. The open view of Islam is that Islam is a faith, and people act in that faith according to their sincere beliefs about that faith. And number 6 is that the closed view of Islam, that any time a Muslim criticizes the West, that has to be rejected because it's a criticism of the enemy. The open view of Islam is that criticisms of the West and other cultures have to be considered and debated, just like Muslims consider and debate criticisms that come off them from other people would also have to consider and debate the criticisms that come about them from Muslims. It's a process of give and take. Number 5 is that discriminations against Muslims are justified, as we just saw in the polling data, and that hostility towards Islam can be used to justify discriminatory practices toward Muslims, and Muslims can be excluded from activities of the society. The open view of Islam would be the debates and disagreements with Islam. There can be debates and disagreements, and there are profound debates and disagreements on many issues, which is a good thing.
Sure.
I mean, what would this world be like if everybody thought the same way, acted the same? It would be a very boring place to live in.
Sure.
And given the choice of living in a multicultural society or a monolithic society, I would choose a multicultural society
Absolutely.
10 times over a monolithic society, if not 100 times over a monolithic society, because it's just much more fun to live in there when you have people of different ideas and different persuasions, and you're engaging with them. You are giving something and you are taking something.
Sure.
You're enriching them and you are being enriched by them. And number 8 is that Islamophobia is just normal. And I hear that from people that say, you know what, 9/11 was caused by Muslims, and thus it is okay to be afraid of Muslims.
I see.
That's the closed view of Islam. The open view of Islam, that critical views of Islam are themselves subjected to critique. If you are critical of Islam, you're okay. It's perfectly legitimate to ask the question, did Islam contribute to 9/11? But it is also then okay that the person who is asking the question would be subjected to critique itself.
Sure.
And they should be open to hear the answers that are given by Muslims, people who actually practice that faith. And this is something that we see also, manifestations of Islamophobia. You will see discussions about issues related to Muslims and Islam in the media, and what you see is the absence of Muslim voice in that discussion. So, everybody is speaking about Islam but the Muslims.
But the Muslims, right. And then they tell you, why don't you scholars speak? The question is, how do you find the avenues where your voice is heard?
You and I, we both speak at churches and synagogues, not only in Jacksonville but across the country. And what you probably have seen is that one of the most common questions people would ask you is, why do Muslims not condemn terrorism? And sometimes I think the question itself is Islamophobic, that how would you expect, why would you think people who are decent human beings would not condemn terrorism?
Absolutely.
And then they would say, well, we never heard about it.
Right.
Well, I mean, because we did not hear about it does not mean it did not happen. First of all, Muslims don't control the media. They don't own the media. So they can only say things. It's the media's job to carry that message.
That's true.
And probably the most interesting article on this issue was written by a local columnist here in Jacksonville who works for the Times-Union, Mark Woods. He wrote an op-ed that the title was, "Are Muslims Condemning Terror to the Deaf?"
To the deaf.
To the deaf.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually called me after the London bombings, and he was asking me questions about, do Muslims condemn terrorism? And I said, of course they do. And I pointed him to several resources, and I gave him my viewpoints on that issue. And he said, oh my God, I didn't realize there was such a volume of condemnation and about terrorism. And then he said, well, if all this volume exists, how come people keep on asking the same question over and over again? So I think in this sense, of course, sometimes it is too convenient to blame the media for many of our problems. But on this case, I certainly feel that the media has to share a lion's share of the blame.
Yeah, because you see, there are many causes for which there are many avenues available. I believe it was in the paper yesterday, or the day before yesterday, that Pat Robertson's Christian Broadcasting Network had raised $165 million through donations. This does not include any other sponsorship. These were donations received in 1 year. Mm-hmm. Now, when you have that type of funding source available to project a message that whatever, whether you agree with Dr. Robertson or not, whatever message he decides to put, he can. Whereas the Muslims do not have any access to anything of that nature, where they can project a message that needs to be conveyed to get rid of the Islamophobia or any other.
And Muslims have to do their own part. I mean,
yes.
Part of Islamophobia is also the result of Muslims not being as inclusive and as open as they need to be.
Right.
So it is a two-way street.
Absolutely.
We cannot always blame others for problems. That any problem that happens, it takes two hands to clap.
Right.
So there is a lot to be done from the Muslim community's side.
I think if I was to leave our viewers with one message, that I think we should all make a distinction between the faith and the practice of the adherents of that faith. So when it applies to Islam, we need to make a distinction. What does Islam say and how some Muslims may behave? And obviously that would apply to people of other faith traditions as well.
Absolutely.
In about a minute or so that we are left with, I'm being told exactly 1 minute, what is it that you would like to suggest the entire community?
Well, I think this is a very, very serious time for the world. And serious times require serious engagement. Diplomacy and dialogue are precisely required when things are difficult. Because we have to acknowledge that there is a climate of fear.
Sure.
There is a climate of misunderstanding. There is a climate of bigotry. There is a climate of hatred. And it probably exists on every side. So there's no need to point any finger of blame on any side. It becomes a collective responsibility for everybody to engage. So I would invite people of other faiths to come to the Islamic Center, to call us at the Islamic Center, to come and visit us at the Islamic Center, to ask us to visit them at their houses of worship. And we keep on reciprocating with each other. We keep on dialoguing with each other. We keep on meeting each other, talking to each other. And through that process, what we will discover is that 90% of the time we have the same feelings, the same aspirations, the same fears. And we need to harness that for common good.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have. I appreciate your sharing your knowledge with us. I'd like to thank the viewers at home. May God Almighty guide us all. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you.
حي على الفلاح
I'm an African American.
I'm Hispanic American.
I'm of European heritage.
My forefathers overcame the trials of slavery.
I've been a Girl Scout since I was 6 years old, and now I'm a troop leader.
One of my ancestors was a member of the Continental Congress.
I served in our nation's armed forces.
2 of my uncles fought for our country in the Korean War.
And I am an American Muslim.
And I am an American Muslim.
I am an American Muslim.
Muslims are part of the fabric of this great country and are working to build a better America.
You're watching Local Access, Channel 29, exclusive programming for Comcast subscribers.